Hello and a warm greetings to one and all watching this video. In this video, we'll be discussing about the data protection policy and why is it India's need of the hour. This video has been done as a part of my Indian economy and policy course. So let's get into the video. So why is data protection policy really needed? As we all know, the internet user base in India has been growing tremendously. It accounts to around 700 million active internet users in India. This user base has been widely distributed across various social media platforms. I've listed a few here. WhatsApp users account to around 340 million in India. Facebook accounts to 320 million users. Twitter, there are around 17.5 million users. Instagram accounts to 140 million. YouTube users are around 265 million. And finally, Netflix accounts to 25.5 million users in India. User trend to share their personal information with these companies like WhatsApp, Facebook, and Twitter in exchange of their services. So what has this company done? This company has data as one of its most important resources. Companies like Google, Facebook, and Amazon have built their empires around this data from their users. So what are the risks involved? So many times we evaluate the risks involved in sharing our data. I've listed a few of the risks involved. Firstly, the data stored at insecure servers by these companies lead to breach in the data. There are various instances of such breaches happened in the past. I've listed a few here. The first one is the Zoom credential breach, where around 5 lakh user credentials were sold in the dark web. Second is the very famous Facebook and Cambridge Analytica data scandal, wherein Cambridge Analytica had obtained personal data of millions of Facebook users without their consent. Marriott data breach case, where personal data of around 5.2 million guests of Marriott were compromised in the dark web. So the second risk involved here is this: the data which we give to such companies are shared to a third-party client without the consent of the user. And many times what happens is these third-party tend to be advertisers who in turn try to advertise targeted contents very tailored and customized to our requirements. Final thing is these companies try to move, store, and process this data across the borders, that is outside India. They store it in their countries like Europe and America. This can be very dangerous for data of Indian people. So how is data protection currently regulated in India? Currently, the misuse and transfer of personal data of users is protected by a law called the Information Technology Rules 2011 under the IT Act of 2000. So though this act was passed in 2000, it had the potential to arrest majority of the data breaches at that time. But as technology has grown enormously, such old laws are not capable now to hold such breaches and protect user data. So what are the disadvantages here? One is it has a very narrow definition of what is called as a sensitive personal data. The second one is the possibility of overriding the clauses mentioned in the law with the help of a contract between the two parties involved. Third one is this law is applicable only to private companies. Governments are not under this purview. So moving forward, let's discuss what is the Personal Data Protection Bill of 2019. So Justice B.N. Sri Krishna Committee had prepared the draft bill, and this report was submitted on data protection to the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. There are various salient features of this bill. One of it is it clearly defines what a sensitive personal data actually is. So what a sensitive personal data is? It includes passwords, financial and health data, official identifiers, which would include government-issued ID cards, sex life, sexual orientation, biometric and genetic data, transgender status or intersex status, caste or tribe, political or religious views, and their affiliations. So moving forward, let's discuss some of the very crucial and salient features of the Personal Data Protection Bill of 2019. First important feature is its extraterritorial in nature. Which means that in lines with EU's GDPR, the Personal Data Protection Bill of India states that the database of Indian users have to be stored and processed in inside the Indian territory, and it should not be taken outside India. And if it is done so, Indian government has all the rights to make these companies liable. And second one is the bill governs the personal data processing by these data fiduciaries, which include the state, the companies incorporated in India, and foreign companies which operate in India on data of Indian user base. Third, the central government can exempt any government agency from not complying with this bill. Fourth one is the sensitive personal data, which should be processed only in India. There is a rule in this bill that these companies like Facebook, American Express, MasterCard have been forced to process their data only in India. They cannot operate on Indian data outside the territory. The new bill also overrides all the old notifications and regulations regarding data protection and privacy in India. This bill also establishes a new body to monitor and enforce the provisions given in the bill. This body will be called the Data Protection Authority of India, or DPAI. And it also creates a provision for voluntary verification of social media accounts of the users. It has a new feature called the right to erasure or right to be forgotten. Suppose a user wants to opt out of a service given by a data fiduciary, for example, Facebook. So now what happens is Facebook retains the information of the user even after the user deactivates his or her account. But after this bill has been come into existence, Facebook or any other company per se who holds the data of the user has to delete it if requested by the user, and any data of the user must not lie inside the server of the company. Finally, the central government can direct any data fiduciary to share anonymized personal data or non-personal data with the state. So now finally, let's discuss what are the economic and business impacts of this bill. So the bill proposes a wide variety of compliances with which these data fiduciaries must follow. These compliances are like data minimization requirements, transparency requirements, localization requirements, data protection impact assessments, appointment of data protection officers in the companies, data orders, and lots more. So there is always a cost account which comes accounted when these compliances are done. So for example, UK has estimated an annual cost of around 220 million Great Britain pound after it followed the GDPR of the European Union. The second important impact is the Personal Data Protection Bill provides government mandated sharing of privately collected and developed non-personal data from any private data fiduciary, which is like any private company established in India collecting data, non-personal data of its users, has to share the data processed or unprocessed to the government on its mandate. Third and most important thing is this bill exempts many small companies from not following these compliances if the data process is done manually. Though most of India's firms fall under the micro category, these firms collect and process this data automatically, and they do not process it manually. So under such a condition, these micro firms are denied from this non-compliance allowance which is given in this bill. So that's all from my side. Thank you all for your patience hearing.